Okay, welcome everyone. Good afternoon to all those in India and in our on-site mentoring session, and also good morning and good evening to all of you, depending on which part of the world you're joining from. So in this webinar, the main intention is to cover the submission guidelines and walk through the submission presentation. And by the end of this, we all know that we are in the last few hours before final submissions, and final submissions happen at 4 p.m. India time on Sunday, which is 24th of February, that is tomorrow. So let me get to it. I'm going to share my screen to show you the presentation template that's already shared with everyone. This will be a relatively short webinar. So here we have the main template, which was shared with every participant of the hackathon. If you don't have the template, I'm going to share the URL with you right now over chat. You should have the presentation template now in your GoToWebinar chat screens. And the idea is to just walk you through this so that we know what submissions we are expecting and how the jury will be evaluating the submissions. So this is the main title slide in the template. You can leave WRC Blockchain Hackathon the way it is, and we expect you to put a project name here. So whatever projects you're working on, give a name to your project and mention the name. You can also mention a name to your team on the same slide. The next slide is for you to mention your team members. So each team can have at max 4 members in their team. We've put in some sample cartoon figures here. So we expect you to basically replace these cartoon figures with your own photos if you like, or leave them the way they are. What's important is basically you mention the team member name and what did the team member do. So one could be maybe a coding ninja, the other person could be an idea factory, someone else could be a coder who doesn't sleep, or another person may just be a fun lover. So you can give designations to all your team members here and mention those designations inside this slide. And you can also include any additional profile information that you may want to share here. It may contain the company name that you're working for or which college or university you're studying in. You can also mention some of your past experience with hackathons, past experience with any other projects you've done, not necessarily as part of hackathons. Any awards or recognitions that you have won so far, you could mention them. They may not count much as far as the jury process is concerned, but you can let the jury know of your own individual backgrounds. So you can feel free to include some basic bio that you want to include on this slides, or you can also just leave it at your photo and name and what is your role in the team as far as this current hackathon is concerned. Moving on to the next slide, we've identified a few problems for the hackathon itself. So we don't want you to change the content of the slide. You can do if you want to, but I would advise keeping the content same. It makes it clear for the jury. So some of the problems include preventing unauthorized meters from reporting data into blockchain, detecting IoT meter tampering and data fraud, then setting up smart contracts between regulators and organizations, data storage on blockchain for data transparency, blockchain consensus algorithms for speed of transactions and security, and also securing the WRC issuance and trading mechanisms. So we want you to basically put a tick mark against all the items that your proposed solutions will address. If you want to include any more points on the slide, feel free to do so. And if you don't address any, leave them as unticked. So this slide gives the jury a high-level overview of what to expect out of the project that you have done, and they will look at the project from the points that you have basically marked in this section. So moving on, considering that you in the previous slide you've actually marked the problems that you solve. In this slide, you need to mention how you solve these problems. So you can, and this slide can be very, very exhaustive. So you don't have to fit everything in one slide. You can use more than one slide. So you could split this slide into 3 or 4 slides based on all the problems that you're addressing, and mention in detail with diagrams, process flows, flow charts that you want on how you are addressing each of the problems that you're addressing. So feel free to be elaborate. You can also include demo videos and demo presentations in this slide. So moving on, the next slide actually talks about some of the tools and technologies that you've used. So if you've used a blockchain, you can mention you've used a blockchain. If you're using IoT, what type of IoT devices or meters you're using. If you're not using any hardware as of now, mention what types of hardwares are going to be used in the proposed solution. Whether it's an Arduino kit, it's Raspberry Pi, it's something else. If you're using blockchain, smart contracts, is it Hyperledger, Ethereum, Solidity, any of these platforms that you choose, mention them on these slides. You can also mention the various programming languages that you've used. So maybe you've used some amount of Python, you might have used some amount of R programming. Mention that here. You can also mention why these languages are used, what are the benefits of using these languages, and any additional information you want to give. So the jury will look at this slide and they will know what level of work has happened and what type of tools and technologies you have used in your solution. Moving on, this is the most crucial slide. So it's necessary for every team to give coverage on the demo slide. So the demo video covers basically a demo of the, so there are 2 demos here. One is if you've built a software that's functional, you can give a demo of that software itself, which is a video, link to the video. If you have written code that you are willing to open source on GitHub and have open sourced it, you can put the link of the GitHub code here. So the demo video of a functional prototype and access to the source code of that functional prototype counts to 15% score in all the scoring. So if you have built a software, we recommend filling that information inside this slide. Also put some screenshots of your developed software and how it works, and a video of it functioning. You qualify for the 15% score that goes to a technical, basically a working prototype, and if you have this slide mentioned. But if you don't have a working prototype and you've not written any software, it's still fine. You can still submit the presentation and the jury will open the presentation. What they expect in this demo slide is a link to a video wherein you are presenting this presentation just the way I'm presenting it right now. So what we want you to do is basically take a screen capture. We don't need a video of you. We want a video basically capture of your screen, and we want you to talk and record your audio and submit and upload it to, say, YouTube or Vimeo or any of the platforms you choose, and upload it as a unlisted video. So public but unlisted. So the jury should be able to access your video without requiring any authentication or additional permissions from your side. But your video should not be made public. If you want to make it public, that's fine, which means you're at risk of other competitors copying what you're doing. But we advise that you put an unlisted video so that others can't search the video. Only users with the link can access it, and jury who will have the link should be able to access this video. The jury will look at the demo video and will see your presentation wherein you are actually presenting this presentation. We recommend you submit high quality videos for this presentation because we would be using snippets from your presentation in various other demonstrations we do where we showcase this hackathon. It may also go on our website. The video may also stay on DevPost for a very long time for a lot of parties who are interested to look at. It is not unusual to see third-party companies look at hackathons that have happened on DevPost and contact teams for solutions they like. So it happens all the time. So any submissions you make would be made public on DevPost, and they would stay on DevPost. So it's very likely maybe even few months later, somebody may look at the submission you have done as part of this hackathon and may come and approach you because they want to work with you in helping them solve some of these challenges that you have possibly solved as part of the hackathon. So make good quality videos and put them up on YouTube or Vimeo and share the links. You can also include the link to the video directly in your dev post submission as a separate link. So that's something about the demo video slide. Just one important point, the demo videos should not exceed a total of 10 minutes. If you do upload a video that's greater than 10 minutes, the jury will only look at the first 10 minutes of the video and will only grade you on the first 10 minutes. It can be lesser than 10 minutes, but no more than 10 minutes. So the next slide talks about implementation challenges. So this is where we want you to mention any challenges that you see in taking your solution to market. So now that you have proposed a solution and it is believed to solve the problems that you have marked it will solve, we want to know whether there are any other challenges that we need to look at. And these challenges could be technology challenges, but maybe different challenges like funding challenges. Maybe the meters that need to be procured or the software setup that needs to be done is very large. So for this software setup, we need a lot of funding. We may need certain amount of regulatory approvals. So the regulatory approvals itself may take time, so it may add to certain delays, or the technology itself does not allow us to do a few things, like maybe you're recommending putting the data on a public blockchain, but then the public blockchain has a certain maximum number of transactions that can get approved every hour, and the number of meters that are being used to report data are more than the transactions that can be approved by the blockchain. So that could be a technology challenge in itself. So mark it out as what all do you believe are the implementation challenges. This slide is pretty important in a way, because when the jury looks at this slide and they look at the challenges that you have mentioned, it also portrays how well you have an understanding of the entire general ecosystem for implementation. So if you're proposing a solution, it's very unlikely that the solution has no challenges, because in reality, implementing everything has certain challenges. When you mention them here, it shows the clarity of thought that you have in being able to implement these solutions. So the next slide is basically just a thank you slide, and you can optionally include contact details on the slide. So that's all that we expect from a submission presentation standpoint. So we do recognize that some candidates may not be doing an actual implementation because you're not well versed with implementing a blockchain, or you don't have a coder on your team right now. One second. So I'm opening the website for DevPost, and I'm going to walk you through the judging process itself and how the judges are going to allocate, distribute the scoring. So to register, to basically submit, you first need to register for this hackathon. The button that you see here, I assume all of you on this webinar are already registered. Once you register for the hackathon, this button will basically show you a start submission. So you go click that button and start a submission, and you can make the submission. You can edit the submission right up to the deadline. So I advise that you submit in advance because the submissions will automatically close on the portal at 4 p.m. exact India time tomorrow afternoon. So you can make a submission well in advance, and then if you have time remaining, you can go back and edit it. That way, if you're not able to give the edits by 4 p.m., at least something that you have worked on is already available. So the jury will evaluate you. If a submission doesn't come through, the jury will not evaluate you. It will be treated as a team that basically did not make a submission. So if you go down at the bottom of this page, I'm just going to scroll right through, right? There's a section called judging criteria. So when you're making your presentations, keep this judging criteria in mind. So there's a weightage given to these scores. So the idea itself that you have has 15% score. So it basically talks about how innovative your solution is and how innovative your idea is. And innovation also means how different is your solution from the solutions proposed by other teams as part of the hackathon. Then 30% scoring is for the technical solution, which is the technological know-how that you have portrayed. 30%, it doesn't require that you have the solution working or you have written any code. You can make a proposed architecture as a technological solution. So you can say that we want to use Solidity for smart contracts. You could say we want to use Hyperledger for private data storage, and this is how these systems are going to be configured. This is the block diagram of the entire system, and this is how it's going to work. That is a technical solution. You don't have that working, that's totally fine. We don't expect you to have the entire system working. But if you do give a proposed implementation architecture, which is feasible to implement, it will count as a valid technical solution. The next section is relevance to problem statement, which is 20% of the score. So how relevant is the proposed solution? Viable, basically solves rather all of the problem statements that are mentioned. So some solutions may address the problem statements fully, some may address it partially. So depending on how much your solution addresses the problem statements and how many of the problems that it addresses, you will be scored in this section, which is relevance to problem statement. The next section, 15% score, goes to commercial viability, which is basically how commercially viable your solution is. So we understand that it might be actually easier to make extremely expensive solutions that really do work, but they may be commercially non-viable. So we want you to keep an eye on whether the solution you're proposing is commercially viable, right? So the solution cannot be of the tune of saying, we want to do transactions on the public Bitcoin network or set up a network that's as large as the Bitcoin network, because that may not be commercially viable to solve the problem at hand. So we want you to look at the commercial viability, which also talks a little about implementation feasibility. And you'll be scored 15% on this section based on how commercially viable and feasible your solution is. Now, then next comes the working prototype. So 15% score goes to working prototype, and this is where any software that you write comes in. If you write code and you submit the code over GitHub, you get scores for the working prototype. If there's no code that's written, no functional software demo can be provided, then you basically get a 0 score for the working prototype. But a 0 score in working prototype does not necessarily mean that you get disqualified from the hackathon or anything of that sort, because it only counts 15% in the total scoring. So keep in mind that there will be teams that do give a working prototype, so they will get percentage scores here. Their ideas may not be good, so people who don't submit a working prototype still have the chance of winning. But if you submit a working prototype and your idea is good, you have a higher chance of winning. So the last section basically focuses on public voting. So as soon as the submissions close at 4 p.m. Tomorrow afternoon, public voting will open. Public voting is on DevPost itself. So you can basically send out, share your submission. Your submissions will become public. So each team will be able to view the submission of each and every other team. So the submissions become public the moment submissions stop. So it's okay for other teams to see your submission after submissions have closed, because none of the teams will be able to edit their submissions. So everyone can see everyone's submissions. You can share the submissions with your friends, colleagues, and anyone, including your social media, your Facebook handles, Twitter handles, Instagram. You can share these solutions and motivate people to vote for you. So the voting happens on the DevPost platform itself. And based on the number of votes you get, you have a slightly higher chance of winning, because we give 5% score to the public voting. That is how much public votes you get to support your idea itself. The public votes may also come organically from other dev post users. So there is a big dev post community that does look at hackathons that get closed, hackathons that are open for public voting, and the dev post users who are enthusiasts, technology enthusiasts, may look at your submissions and may actually give votes to certain submissions. So in the event that your submission is good and some other team submission is also good, your public votes may actually be a tiebreaker. So don't underestimate the 5%. Try to do the best in getting as many public votes as you can get. So that is basically all that I have to mainly say as part of this webinar. So I'm open to any question and answers that you have, any questions that you have.